everyone, and welcome to my research class and this video, which is an introduction to social work research methods. So before we actually get into social work research, which I know is a little misleading since it's right there in the title, but let's take one step back and look at what research is in general. So when I say the word research, these are probably some images that pop up, but by way of definition, research is a method of obtaining objective knowledge about the world through systematic observation. Now, a key word in this definition is the word knowledge. This is important because the purpose of research is to know something we didn't know before. And the way we do this is through observation that's systematic. So I know I just flipped those two words, but essentially this just means that there are procedures that are followed, certain rules, an order to the way we go about obtaining that knowledge. So you see this little star by the word objective, so it's kind of another important word there. I'm not going to get too much into it because that's going to be the focus of the next video, but here it's just to say, you know, there's this question of, is there such a thing as objectivity in research? Some researchers argue that some research cannot be objective and that that's actually an okay thing. But again, we'll go over that in a little bit more detail in the next video. Okay, so let's move on to social research then. Social research versus medical or other types of research is very particular in the sense that it focuses on, again, empirical and systematic examination, but of social and psychological factors in particular. Social research is conducted typically in fields like sociology or psychology or social work because we are interested in, not necessarily whether a particular drug works for a particular health condition but more in terms of social problems and psychological behaviors and phenomena. So then social work is actually a type of social research. And in social work research in particular, what we're trying to do is usually understand a particular social problem, for example, racism or discrimination, poverty, or a person's behavior. So for example, criminal behavior or maybe elder abuse, or we're trying to evaluate a treatment or policy, essentially answering the question of, does it work? And in particular with social work research, we're trying to understand these things as they affect the clients and the populations that we serve. So why do we need social work research? Well, mainly because we need effective solutions to the problems that we have in this country. Now, whether that be at the individual level with interventions and treatments, or even at the community level, or at the policy level, social work has an evidence base to it. We don't just try out things willy-nilly to see if they'll work, because that's unethical to do. We have to have some research evidence that says what we are doing with our clients works. Okay, so just kind of lighten the mood a little. Said this is kind of a jokey way to say it, I guess, but beware. You may be using research without knowing it. Okay, now that I actually said it out loud, it's not as funny, but what I'm trying to get at is what Reed and Fortune are saying here, which is, it may be true that practitioners seldom turn to research studies to inform their practice, but their practice may be more influenced by research than is commonly thought. So the reason I put this up here is because probably at this point you're thinking, why am I taking this class? Oh my God, this is so boring. And why do I need to know about research? Even after I just explained why social work research is important, you might be asking yourself, why is it important for me personally, especially if you're planning on being a clinician or working one-on-one with clients or even in groups. Well, the reason is because even if you never conduct a research study yourself, you are and your clients are benefiting from research. For example, if you use cognitive behavioral therapy with your clients, then you are actually using research even if you don't know it, because there is an evidence base. There has been research conducted to show that this is effective. But what if there's a new intervention? How do you know it's going to work? Are you just going to trust other people? Or are you going to be a critical consumer of research on that intervention? And I would suggest that you want to be a critical consumer because that's what's going to benefit your clients. So, okay, I may not have convinced you with this, but I promise that by the end of the class, I will do my darndest so that everyone not only appreciates research, but kind of gets why it's important for individual social workers to know the methods of research. Okay, so that's just kind of a little interlude there. Let's move on to what research is. So research is empirical, which is a fancy word and a way of saying that it's based on observation. So whether that be eyeballs, like actual looking at something and taking a measurement, or more typically via a survey or an interview or what have you, that's what empirical means. It's systematic. So I kind of already mentioned this, that we follow certain procedures. It's theory-driven, so research is usually either testing a theory or coming up with a theory, which we call theory building. It is provisional, which means that it can be altered with new evidence, with new research. And it's objective. Objective just means that it's free from bias. And again, we'll go over that later when we go over quantitative and qualitative research. Okay. So then if that's what research is, then researchers are open-minded, even if we may have what's called a hypothesis, something that we expect the research to show. We're open to the research not showing that. We're skeptical, right? We don't take things at face value. We need evidence. We're cautious. We don't go around making large claims from one study. We are fallible. Sometimes we make mistakes. But I think one of the most important things about researchers is that we're ethical. And next week's class and the video that goes with that will go over ethics in social work research in more detail. Okay. So there are different types of research. One type is descriptive. This is where we're kind of, as the name suggests, trying to describe a particular situation or phenomenon or problem or what have you. So an example research question for a descriptive study would be, how many homeless individuals are in this city and what are their demographics? So in this study, the researcher is just trying to get a description of what the homeless population looks like. They're not trying to answer any question of why they're homeless or anything like that, just trying to give a picture of maybe a new homeless or a rise in homelessness in a particular city. Another type is exploratory, and this is typically for areas that we don't know a lot about. So, for example, a research question might be, what are the experiences of LGBTQ foster youth? Now, unfortunately, this is a population we actually don't know a lot about. So an exploratory research study is exploring the experiences of these youth. Predictive is where we're trying to understand what factors influence or predict why a certain population or a certain group or certain individuals engage in certain behaviors or what have you. So, for example, what are the risk factors for juvenile delinquency among Vietnamese youth? So, in this case, when we say risk factors, then we're wanting to know what predicts whether or not a Vietnamese youth will engage in delinquency, Now, you'll notice here when I specifically use Vietnamese youth because I don't know, but I think this is probably a population that we don't know a whole lot about. And so this one research question is not only predictive, but it might actually be exploratory as well. So, I did that on purpose, obviously, to show that one research study can include different types of research. Okay, so the next one is explanatory. And again, as the name suggests, we're trying to explain a particular, phenomenon, like why it's happening. So for example, why do some parents abuse their children while others do not? So we're trying to find some sort of explanation. A tip or a hint or a clue is the word why here. So anytime you see the word why, know that there's some sort of explanation being sought. And then lastly, we have evaluation, which I mentioned earlier. But if you notice the word value or part of the word value is in evaluation, we're trying to put some sort of value on a particular treatment or intervention or policy. We want to say, is this of value? Did it work? Is it effective? So for example, does cognitive behavioral therapy work with Native Hawaiians? Now there's a lot of evidence about CBT working, but maybe we don't know whether it works with specific populations as well as it does sort of in general. So we're evaluating cognitive behavioral therapy in this context. Okay, so one more slide, and that has to do with the applications of research. The first type of application is called basic, and this is where we're just trying to understand a particular, again, situation, phenomenon, problem, behavior, etc., without necessarily doing anything about it as the purpose of the study. And then you have applied, which is to put, that understanding or the understanding gained from the research study into practice. So social work research is considered applied because it's usually conducted with the purpose of solving some sort of problem by suggesting solutions to it based on the knowledge gained from that study. As I promised, that was the last slide in terms of content. So next up, we are going to focus on that word knowledge that was way back at the beginning of this video and answer the question of how do we know what we know? I know how it sounds, but I have a little GIF here of that Friends episode where they kept saying they don't know that we know they know we know. And I know that's what it sounds like, but it's actually pretty straightforward. And I promise it's on the video on epistemology and ontology. I break these concepts down. I know those are, very fancy big words, but I go over essentially how the research methods that we picked to understand something have to do with our belief systems on what we can actually know about that phenomenon. So I know how it sounds. I know, I know that it sounds really odd, but I promise I will do my best to break it down for you. So thank you for thank you, but also sources of images, because we will be going over plagiarism and all of that in another video. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in class or in the next video. Okay, bye.